Hello, kings, queens, and monarchs of every element. I am the one, the only, the RJB0, also known as RJ the Jank Monarch. This month, as promised, I am going to be bringing you deck videos throughout the Time Wizards of Tomorrow format for the month. I want to bring you some decks that I personally love, some decks that are competitive and I've never gotten to play before, and some decks that I just want to tinker with and try out. And today, we are doing a little bit of the latter of those. This is going to be a very E3 Yu-Gi-Oh!-esque video because this is a very Edison-like format. Shout out to Keegan and E3 Yu-Gi-Oh! I'll drop a link to that channel in the comments section below. One of my favorite channels in the world on Yugitube. On YouTube. And so I'm going to be following a format very similarly to how they do videos over there. So you are going to see my face for this video. It's going to be all deck all the time. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you an initial build. I'm going to do some replays / live duels, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to see if we can improve on the build from there. This week, I am doing a little bit of a blast from my own past. 2011 was when I really got into Yu-Gi-Oh! When I started paying attention to the competitive scene and when I discovered Yugitube. One of the first channels that I saw that inspired me to get more into the game was Team Minority SPG, a channel that hasn't been active for many years, but the guys over there were a lot of fun and were a great introduction back into the game. And one of the brainchildren of that channel is the deck before you today, to some extent. Effectively, it looks like it's kind of a tomato toolbox deck from the old Reaper days, but surrounding one very important new addition to the tomato toolbox, which is Genex Ally Crusher, this little level 4 dark machine with 2000 defense who has a very, very intriguing effect. Once per turn, when a monster with the same attribute as this card is normal summoned to your side of the field, you can select one card your opponent controls and destroy it. With 2000 defense, the free +1 seems very, very intriguing in this format. And so I wanted to see if I could come up with a control deck surrounding this card. Of course, no Crusher control lists survived to today, and so I had to make this a little bit from scratch. And so I'm just going to go through the card by card and explain my logic. A lot of this is me testing out a variety of things to see what value we can get out of Crusher. First of all, we have the guy himself, Genex Ally Crusher, and then 3 Mystic Tomato. Mystic Tomato is important because it gets you into Crusher, but it also gets you into a variety of other cards that have a lot of great synergy with it. Next, we have 1 Black Salvo. Did you know that Genex Ally Crusher is a level 4 Dark Machine? Of course you did, I just told you that at the beginning of this video, but that also means that you can Black Salvo back a Genex Ally Crusher to make things like Black Rose after you've used it. You can also Black Salvo back a Genex Ally Crusher with another Genex Ally Crusher on the board to get a +1 that way, which I absolutely love. Summoner Monk is a card that gets you to Crusher, but it also gets you to a variety of other cards that are good in this deck. Next we have probably our highest value normal summon Tour Guide from the Underworld. You're probably thinking, hey RJ, what the hell? Tour Guide from the Underworld is a card that provides no pressure in a format that doesn't have Xyz monsters because you can't use its material or its buddy to go into a synchro monster. And in that way, you are right. However, Tour Guide does get you access to Sangan, and if you have a Crusher on the field, that gets you a +2 on the turn that you summon Tour Guide, and Sangan getting you pretty much everything else in the deck means that this is an incredibly powerful card in this deck, exactly. Sangan can also search you a Crusher if needs be. Next, we get into an interesting engine to include. I wanted to find the highest value normal summonable dark monsters I could, and what I found was that the zombie package is a very, very high value set of normal summonables. Specifically, Spirit Reaper is extremely powerful with Crusher. If your opponent only has 1 monster on the board and you normal summon a Spirit Reaper and crush it away, you then get a free attack on your opponent's hand, which is a very high value thing. Add on to that the fact fact that Spirit Reaper is searchable off of Mystic Tomato and also off of Pyramid Turtle and off of Goblin Zombie, which is a dark monster itself, and it has a lot of tutor ability. And the rest of the zombie cards are just generally very good together. Pyramid Turtle searches for basically all of your zombies. Zombie Master is a dark monster and therefore has the synergy with Crusher and also gets you pretty much all of your other zombies. Mizuki is the best zombie there is, and Plague Spreader is a level 2 dark that lets you go into Baryonic off of a Crusher. My last normal summonable is Blackwing Gale the Whirlwind, which basically guarantees to beat anything with under 2600 attack points, and Dark Armed Dragon. We are running a dark deck. What did you expect from me? Our spell card slot starts us off with 3 Pot of Duality and Allure of Darkness. We want to be as consistent as possible. Since our deck is based a lot around a normal summon, Pot of Duality seems like a very good card. Even if we have a Crusher setup already online, we do want to see some defensive cards. And so being able to Pot of Duality when you have a Crush card or a Crusher face down, God, I wish I had Crush card plus Crusher, that would be good stuff. Anyway, Pot of Duality is a really good card for getting us to basically everything we have. Skipping a special summon sucks a little bit for proactivity's sake, but ultimately that's not going to matter much. Next we have a Giant Trunade and an MST just to deal with some floodgates for the most part, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Book of Life to get us back our zombie monsters, and this is a really good anti-meta pick. 1 Book of Moon because it's a good defensive card, 1 Creature Swap because it has an immense amount of synergy with all of our recruiters in this deck, 1 Messenger of Peace as a defensive tool to keep our Crusher on the board, 1 Bottomless Trap Hole, 1 Call of the Haunted, gets us our Crusher back, 1 Mirror Force as a sweeper, double Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. This is a little bit more versatile than Bottomless. It hurts a little bit in terms of advantage because as a control deck, we generally don't want to be discarding cards. However, it can get rid of problems like Stardust Dragon, which is really important. Next, 1 Royal Oppression, because we can run it, 1 Solemn Judgment, our Solemn Brigade in total, and 1 Trap Dust Shoot in order to give us insight into our opponent's hand and get rid of the biggest problems. Our side deck is largely things that synergize with the deck and add tempo into the game versus decks that are going to give us a problem. Breaker the Magical Warrior against heavy back row decks allows us to get +1s while also maintaining our Crusher advantage. Cyber Dragon is really good against things like Herobeat and Gladiator Beast, 2 decks that this deck struggles with a lot because they have a lot of field presence available to them that we don't necessarily do. Double Effect Veiler for the heavy combo decks, double Kaiku because it is a normal summonable dark and it also adds value against graveyard heavy decks. 1 Snipe Hunter, this is really good for getting rid of big problem cards. It's searchable off of Sandcan and off of Mystic Tomato, and it can out Stardust. This is a funny old ruling. Stardust cannot reply to Snipe Hunter because it is not guaranteed that Snipe Hunter is going to destroy a monster. Spirit Reaper for some stall tactics, and also, again, if my opponent is only summoning 1 monster at once, this card is incredible to bring in because it gives us such an advantage against their hand. 1 more MST for Floodgates, double Zombie World as our own Floodgate, and also Zombie World is really cool because it allows us to use our things like Zombie Master and Book of Life to bring back our Crusher, which I think is a really, really cool synergy. And 1 Creature Swap to add in on top of our others, again for matchups where our opponent is only summoning 1 big monster at a time. Our extra deck is pretty much all the good stuff that we could fit in. 1 Chimera Tech for the Cyber Dragons, 1 Ally of Justice Catastor, 1 Ancient Fairy Dragon, 1 Arcanite Magician, 2 Black Rose Dragon, 1 Blackwing Armor Master, 1 Baryonic the Dragon of the Ice Barrier, the best card in the format, 1 Gaia Knight the Force of Earth, 1 Magical Android, 1 Scrap Archfiend, 1 Scrap Dragon, 1 Stardust Dragon, a TG Hyper Librarian against the Synchro combos, and the second best monster in the set, which is Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Let's get into some replays, and I'll show you how this deck worked out. We'll start off our replays with a duel against Diamond Dude Yukio, one of my favorite people on my Discord and also one of my first patrons. Diamond Dude is on Herobeat, and my opening hand looks extremely strong. And that doesn't really matter because I'm not going first. We start off by getting hit with the E emergency call. I guess I can't be mad. I am playing against Herobeat, and they have every piece of access to Stratos. ever made available here. They go for Stratos, which goes into the Alias naturally, and I'm thinking, oh boy. Fortunately, Genex Ally Crusher is very, very good into Stratos exactly just because I could just set it face down, and they have to expend removal to get over it. If they do get over it, however, my hand does not have a lot of gas to work with, so we are going to have to throw and hope against this one. A full set of back row also does not bode well against us. Mirror Force, however, is fantastic here, and we are going to set our whole back row. Mirror Force could potentially deal with all of Diamond's monsters if they decide to go in for something huge, but ultimately I feel like I don't want to even bother with that because I have the Crusher on the field. They will have to actively use up some removal in order to get rid of it. So I want them to use that. I let the Neos Alias go through here, flipping up Genex Ally Crusher. Now, Diamond Dude takes a little bit of time to take a look at this because, as you can see, he has never seen this card in his life. Ultimately, he comes up with an extremely annoying plan. He gets rid of my Oppression with MST. He gets rid of my Mirror Force with Gemini Spark, which is, God, gotta love having that level of outs to my back row. And then Hero Blast back the Alias to take out Crusher, taking out my entire field presence all in one move. This was a devastating attack from Diamond, and I'll eat the 1800. This is a bad position for me to be in, and I'm beginning to recognize a major weakness of this set, or of this deck, which is that if we lose out on the Crusher, we don't have a lot of aggressive plays to make. Crusher is an incredibly powerful card, obviously, but without it, this deck struggles to put a real play on the board. I go for Allure of Darkness, which gives me a Book of Moon and a creature swap, which is extremely strong, and I'm going to end up banishing the Tour Guide so that I can guarantee that I get this creature swap off. I will set the Goblin Zombie face down, and then creature swap it away to steal Diamond's Stratos, which is not, excellent, but it does give me the field presence and a search for a zombie monster. We swing into the Goblin Zombie, and we have effectively broken even on this play. I believe I end up going for Mizuki because I want to get a value monster. Now, Mizuki isn't great as a normal summon because it doesn't trigger Crusher, but it is great because once it's in the graveyard, it gives me free access to my other zombies, which are all incredibly strong and probably better than the rest of my deck. If I'm being real with myself, I probably just wanted to run a zombie deck. But what's the fun of a normal zombie deck? I go for the Solemn Warning here because I want to maintain the field advantage. I do not want Diamond to get any monsters onto the board because I need to maintain the aggression, need to maintain my position in the game, and this is the only way that I could see myself doing that. If he manages to stick the Neos Alias and run over Stratos and then still has the Gem Spark to get rid of my back row, I'm in some mega trouble. So, Diamond Dude decides to smash and ground away his own Stratos right now, which is ultimately a good move, but I do have the Book of Moon to defend it, which is good for my field presence. Again, that's really what I want to maintain, and I don't want to give him back his Stratos to do things like Call of the Haunted or Monster Reborn. Speaking of which, Monster Reborn is an incredibly good top deck here. This card gives me a large number of options, but it doesn't really give me Crusher plays here yet, which I should have heeded when I thought about whether or not to fire it off, which I ultimately decided to do probably a little too early. So here we go. I go for the Goblino, because I want to get the aggression on while insulating myself against Torrential Tribute. Ultimately, I don't think it matters that I fired off this Monster Reborn a little bit too early, but it does probably misuse the card in terms of its power level. I go in for the 18 with Stratos, and I feel like I'm in a better position than I could have been, all things considered, even though he's up like 2 cards on me, which is huge in this matchup. Him looking at the extra deck also makes me a little bit nervous, not gonna lie. Here we go for the Diva. Diva, a new inclusion on the Herobeat deck, inspired by the Diva heroes of Edison format. This card is going to be nuts for me because Catastor is a tough thing for me to get over. He goes into the Stratos, getting rid of it. I don't take damage, but ultimately this Catastor being on the field is probably worse than me, having to take damage. And Goblin Zombie is still on the field, which is rough for me. I don't have a good way of getting rid of it because crashing into Catastor would put me dangerously low on life points against a deck that can summon Elemental Hero the Shining, one of the biggest Miracle Fusion targets ever invented. I switch Goblino to defense position and pass because I want to force Diamond to attack into the Goblin Zombie rather than allowing him to choose a different target here. I didn't bank on him getting another alias, which probably was a bad bet on my part, but, at least I am getting the Goblin Zombie search here now, even if I'm probably taking more damage than I would have if I had thought about this more before. I take the 2200 off of Catastor, and I am in a tough position. The top deck is Dust Shoot, which is as bad as it could possibly be against Herobeat, and I just have to concede this one. There are things that I can try to get myself out of this situation, things I am contemplating as we speak in this replay, but ultimately I lost this game for a variety of reasons. Number one, Herobeat has so much background to deal with my deck and stats that are ultimately vastly better than what I have access to, and they can do the advantage game really well. Going into the side deck, we want to see if we can figure out a way to out-advantage and out-aggression our opponent. We are going to be going first this time around, but I still decide to bring in the Cyber Dragons here and take out the Trap Dust Shoot, and hope that that is going to be enough on its own. Game 2, we are on the play, and we open fairly solidly. Messenger of Peace plus Zombie Master, or plus Plague Spreader plus Tour Guide is pretty good. Pot of Duality is a little bit nombo-y here for me because I would prefer to be able to get my Sangan onto the board. But, getting a Monster Reborn could certainly be worse. And just activating Messenger of Peace pass is not a terrible play. I go for the Monster Reborn, because why wouldn't I go for the Monster Reborn? Put everything back into my deck, shuffle it away, as per the duality dance, and I pass my turn. I decided not to activate Messenger of Peace because I really had nothing to protect with it. My life points were a little bit forfeit here, but I would rather hold it for when I have a monster to defend rather than just firing it off into back row removal. Diamond goes for Diva into Spined Gilman here, which is a large amount of damage and protects him against Gores. It's a pretty sick play, but mostly it just does more damage right now. After I struggle a little bit with Basic Addition for a second, Diamond decides to Synchro off into Catastor. Now, Catastor wouldn't be a problem for me since I have Cyber Dragon in hand. However, it is at this point that I realize that I did not put Chimeratech Overdragon or Chimeratech Fortress Dragon into my extra deck before this. I don't remember what I had in here besides Chimeratech or instead of Chimeratech, but I did not have it at the time and realized that I was in major trouble here. I'm sure he has an out for it, but it's very funny. I drop the Cyber Dragon. Diamond decides to bottomless it away, even though I don't have the Chimeratech because he is predicting a Caius. I really should put Caius in this deck, shouldn't I? Instead, I go for a Crusher, Messenger of Peace, and pass the turn. Diamond becomes even more confused about how this deck works and draws for turn. He goes for the Pot of Duality that he had set face down, and he does get a potential piece of removal in Gemini Spark, which is absolutely the take here. Especially considering he has a Crusader of Endymion to take away my Messenger of Peace. Oh, this is a problem. This is the major issue with playing a deck like mine against Herobeat. You will always have better stats and better removal cards than I have access to. This is what I get for playing jank. I draw into the MST, which is a little bit like drawing a pistol against an army of tanks with the back row that he has, but the Monster Reborn at least potentially gets me access to Crusher here, which could potentially take out the Catastor. Diamond shockingly decides to let this go. And I summon back my Crusher. This gives me a chance to take out Catastor, a chance that I have not had the rest of this duel so far. And of course, we have to go for the tour guide from the underworld to get our +2 off of it. Tour guide will get me Sandgan. Crusher will get me the destruction of Catastor. And we are surprisingly in pretty good shape. Diamond lets the entire play go, which gives me not only my Crusher play, it gets rid of Catastor, it gives me an attack off of Tour Guide, and gives me a Sandgan to search another normal summon to use off of Crusher. Now, the problem with this setup is Diamond has every reason to attack literally every monster I have except Sandgan. So it may be a little while before Sandgan gets to trigger, but ultimately, if I have enough of a board that he can't get to Sandgan, then I'm probably pretty happy with that. The Smashing Ground comes down, which is a hard counter to Genex Ally Crusher. Another reason why I think I should probably be running Forbidden Lance in here. If I had Lance under these circumstances, I probably wouldn't be nearly as vulnerable to Elemental Hero Stratos as I am right here. Battle phase, Diamond attacks into the tour guide, and I am sitting on a Sandgan that is going to do jack all from here. I am majorly behind on tempo, however, I do have the potential to go for a Black Rose play. I draw for turn, I get a Pyramid Turtle, which is interesting, but probably not what I want to go for. It looks like I have... Even though I have a card that incentivizes normal summoning a lot, I feel like I still have too many normal summons. I feel like resolving Crusher once or twice is probably good enough to put me in a good position in this game. Maybe I don't need as many monsters that I absolutely must normal summon in order to get to play them. That's definitely something to think about for the rebuild. I go deep in the tank to figure out what my next play is. I'm really deciding if it's worth just firing off the Black Rose. Diamond amazingly predicts my next play by saying he's afraid of killing the Sandgan in case I get some salvo bullshit. I go for MST trying to see if I can snipe away a back row that would stop Black Rose. Unfortunately, I hit the D prison instead of a card that would deal with my Black Salvo play, and he torrentials to avoid me going for Black Rose. Ultimately, that was effectively the same as me going for Black Rose, except for the fact that he maintains one back row on the board, which could be game-breaking. We'll see if this one determines the match. Diamond Dude says second salvo for the win, and honestly, he's got a point there. A second salvo would be incredibly good, but I go for Gale because Gale can beat things like Alias, which is incredibly important under these circumstances. Down comes the Alias, and Diamond attacks in, and I am mega low on life points. A Shining would be a major problem for me. I draw into Crusher, and I have to think here. I can use Gale to guarantee that I can run over Alias, but there are many cards in Diamond's back row that could punish this. So the other options are setting the Pyramid Turtle to get me things like a Zombie Master, which may be able to make use of Plague Spreader, or I could just set the Genex Ally Crusher and hope that I can get that +1 next turn. Hope that Diamond decides to attack into it. Another thing that would be kind of nice about Forbidden Lance here is that it would insulate Crusher a little bit from battle. Of course, against Herobeat, that's never going to work because his monsters will still be too big, but it's certainly something to consider. He draws for turn, Standby main. He goes for the E-Call to get I can only imagine another Neos Alias, which is right. Another Alias doesn't get through the Crusher, however, a Alias plus a Gemini Spark will. And as he reveals the Genex Ally Crusher that he can't get over with the first Neos Alias, he reveals the Gemini Spark. He's always got it to take out the Crusher and attack directly with Alias. Again, I am left with the dilemma. Do I summon Gale and just have a smallish dude on the board, or do I go for something a little more defensive? He goes for Skyscraper off of Captain Gold, which I think is a hilarious move. Skyscraper is a really cool card, and I'm glad to see it. And boy, am I also glad to see Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon is probably the best top deck I could have possibly gotten under these circumstances. I am extremely low on life, but at least this puts me up in tempo. I special summon it, and miraculously, it goes through. I normal summon Gale the Whirlwind as well, and here I have to make a decision. There are a few different cards I could go for here. I could maintain the Cyber Dragon Gale. I could also go for a Thought Ruler to deal with Dimensional Prison, another card that goes for Dimensional Prison, or if Diamond has the Mirror Force, I'd want to go for Stardust. This is a difficult dilemma here, but ultimately my thought process here is that if I am thinking about going for Stardust, not only does it lose to Dimensional Prison, but it also loses to the Solemn Warning and Solemn Judgment that we still haven't seen out of Diamond Dude's deck. This means that a Stardust Dragon would be a bad move because it would lose to so many more things than just attacking in with my guys. If it's a Mirror Force, it's a Mirror Force, but I think I'm making the best play considering the odds. I go into battle phase and I attack with the Cyber Dragon and am met with the D Prison. I made absolutely the correct decision here. I attack with Gale to get over the Alias, and here I am up on cards. But the fact that I am as low on life points as I am is really, really hairy. Remember, a Miracle Fusion into the Shining would immediately kill me here. He sets a back row, and I'm very fortunate that he didn't get Miracle Fusion, but now I'm looking at another handful of normal summons. I really need to think about how I deal with the number of normal summons I have in my deck. Phoenix Wing Windblast obviously seems like a great include here, but maybe shaving down on monsters a little bit isn't the worst idea in the world. Getting more toolbox stuff such as Forbidden Lance and Caius instead of having a bunch of normal summonable level 4 and lowers, may be a good way for me to go. One other thing that I could do is bring in Genex Ally Birdman, which is a special summonable tuner that does allow me to reuse some of the normal summons that I have in my deck. Definitely things to consider here. I decide to shift Gale to defense to deal with the potentially top-decked Miracle Fusion. Should I have gone more aggressive? It's a little tough to say, but since I haven't seen a single Miracle Fusion yet, I am really, really scared of that card. Diamond draws in sets, which means it probably, I would have been better off had I attacked with both of these cards, but I don't think that clock is going to matter that much. What matters the most is that I get my control cards to deal with Miracle Fusion and to deal with the swarm capabilities that Herobeat has. Now here I do have the potential to go into Black Rose, which Diamond Dude does notice and uses the Hero Blast to get Alias and destroy the Gale just to guarantee I can't go for Black Rose. Because as Diamond says here, they just lose to Black Rose. This is fine by me. I still have the Mirror Force and I have a Mizuki on the field, which is extremely strong, especially with the Pyramid Turtle I have face down. I go into the battle phase with Mizuki, I attack directly for 17, and now we're in a pretty decent position. I can set the Mirror Force, which is great, and pass turn. He's drawing to 2 cards in hand and 2 cards on field with an Alias in hand. Alias is not ideal, but he draws the MSG to take out my Mirror Force. Why does this always happen to me? Anyway, normal summons the Neos Alias, which is very good for him and attacks into Mizuki. Now, this is an interesting position. If I summon the Plague Spreader and flip summon the Pyramid Turtle to go into a synchro, I could potentially go for double level 6s, which would be truly incredible and game-changing. I big thonk about it for a little while and decide that the play is to do exactly that. I normal summon Plague Spreader, I flip summon the Pyramid Turtle, and he has the Book of Moon. And because there is nothing in Graveyard for Mizuki to revive, that is just the game. That was rough, but it did reveal a lot of interesting things about the deck. I think that Catastor is definitely or Caius is definitely a worthwhile include. Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon is probably a necessary card. I need to shave down a little bit on just normal summonable monsters. Maybe something like a Blackwing Zephyros the Elite is good, as a card that is both a normal summon and a card that potentially gets me more. Foolish Burial would probably be a good tempo play for my zombie deck, and ultimately I think Forbidden Lance could be a really strong card. Let's see how this all goes down in our second match. Our second match is against Pana2525, who is playing fairies this time around. Agents is a deck that just came out around this time, although it didn't have its classic, its iconic Venus into triple Shine Ball into Gachi Gachi Gentetsu play. It still has a lot of value available to it in things like Venus for synchro plays with Genex Ally Birdman and Master Hyperion. Pana opens up with Thunder King Ryo, which is a brutal card for my deck to deal with because I have so many searchers. However, I do have a Mystic Tomato in hand, which is not a card that loses to Ryo, so I don't feel too terribly about this opening. Pana normal summons Ryo, sets a back row, and passes. I draw into Sangam, which I am 100% not summoning, and I have the option to MST the back row and Book of Moon Ryo, but I actually kind of want to keep Ryo on the field for a little bit longer. Ryo is good into Sangam, but if I can trick my opponent into attacking into the Mystic Tomato with Ryo, and then get the Crusher off of the Mystic Tomato summon, then I can normal summon Sangam, take out the Ryo, and really get off to the races. This might have been too passive a play. The problem here being that if my opponent attacks into my Mystic Tomato and I don't have the ability to go for Crusher right away, I'm a little bit on the back foot here. My opponent now misplays incredibly by normal summoning the Agent of Mystery Earth, which gets negated or prevented by Ryo. It's a rough one, but also it's a rough one for me because I can't summon Crusher here. Earth has the exact same attack value as Crusher, another situation which I think Forbidden Lance would have been a really good choice for me. But I can go for another card here, and I have a great variety of cards to get off of Mystic Tomato. Ultimately, I choose to go with another Mystic Tomato. Mystic Tomato is great. It gives me a lot of flexibility, and if I Book of Moon the Ryo, allows me to just run over it anyway. I draw into another Mystic Tomato, which is not terrible, but not ideal. Again, I'm stuck with a handful of normal summonables. I can't help feeling like there might be a better way for me to streamline this deck, given the circumstances. Looking at the field, I do actually have a pretty decent play open to me. I can MST the back row to make sure that I make it through against the Ryo, but my opponent has the Mirror Force. I wanted to see if I could force out the Earth to try and go for a Crusher play next turn, but my opponent had the Mirror Force, and you know what? Sometimes they do that. Fortunately, my Mystic Tomato just traded with a Mirror Force, which is one of the best trades I could have possibly gotten out of this situation. And I want to see if I can get my opponent to attack in with another monster so I can summon the Crusher after a couple of Mystic Tomatoes. Or if I can get my opponent to synchro into a 6, that would also be really good for me. Pana seriously considers going for that 6. Ultimately, though, normal summons the Agent of Miracles Jupiter, a surprisingly powerful card in this format, and attacks into the Mystic Tomato. Now I have to go big think here because Ryo will deal with any battle searcher that I can get, something like the Goblin Zombie. But if I Book of Moon the Ryo after he attacks in, then I can save the Goblin Zombie and have the Ryo face down for next turn. And this is how I decide to do it. I Book of Moon the Ryo. My opponent doesn't really have any way to respond to that and decides to pass. This is great. I can use Sangam to run over the Ryo, and I can use Goblin Zombie to run over the Earth, and this way I have a pretty decent play available to me. I go into battle phase. I start off by attacking the Sangan into Ryo. I do this because I want to get Ryo off the field before I potentially go for an attack on Earth in case my opponent has an Honest available to them. Ultimately, that probably wouldn't have mattered because Ryo was, face down. But in situations like this where you can get rid of something like Thunder King Ryo, it's a good idea to get rid of it first before you go after the other potential threat. Now here my opponent mills Christia, which immediately puts me on warning that Christia is available in this deck. And oh boy, would that card be incredibly bad for me to have to face down. Christia is one of the most powerful boss monsters ever created, and I am on high alert for it for the entire rest of this duel. My opponent attacks in with the Agent of Miracles, which is fine. It gets rid of my Goblin Zombie, and now I have Goblin Zombie in the grave with a Zombie Master in hand and a Mizuki in hand, and I decide to go after a Spirit Reaper, which is a card that has a lot of synergy with both Zombie Master and Crusher. I go for the Zombie Master, I discard the Spirit Reaper to get back the Spirit Reaper. The reason why I do this is because I want to be able to get a card off of my opponent's hand, off of that after crashing Zombie Master. However, my opponent has Herald of the Orange Light, so much for that idea. Fortunately, I have a Mirror Force of my own, which means that even if my opponent summons a big monster, I can just Mirror Force it. Panda decides to just attack in with Jupiter, which is probably the best play, considering the fact that I have the burden of action here. I search off of Sangan, and I decide the best thing to go for is Black Salvo. Because I have a Crusher in hand, Black Salvo potentially gets me an instant Black Rose, which is pretty good at all points in the game. I draw, it's a giant Trunade, which isn't ideal. I am still sitting on an MST in the back row, but now I have the ability to set Crusher and probably not have to worry about much. Pana does use Jupiter's effect here, which is awkward for me because now Jupiter is big enough to run over Crusher, and so I do have to use the Mirror Force here. Less than ideal. But I got a fairy out of the graveyard, which means now they're on Christia fodder. Oh, I really should have thought this through a lot better. But at least I still have Crusher. Draw into Pot of Duality and get Dust Shooted. It could be worse. I could get Dust Shooted without the Duality, but they go for the Mizuki, which is not ideal, but probably fine. I'm actually glad to keep the Black Salvo under these circumstances. Duality gets me Creature Swap, gets me Tour Guide, and gets me Pyramid Turtle, but I think the obvious answer here is Pyramid Turtle to get the field presence. Pyramid Turtle may honestly not be that great, just because it is a normal summonable that doesn't resolve Crusher. Definitely something to think about. Pyramid Turtle gets in for 12, and I get Malcatted for the MST. Great, the MST basically traded with the Malcat. We get in for 12, and my opponent draws. Setting a monster I can only assume is Honest, because that's the only card that fairy decks ever set. I have to go for Duality here. I don't really have anything in my hand to work with, and I banish a bunch of not much to work with. They're really good cards. Every single one of these, Messenger of Peace, Book of Life, Solemn Judgment, are good cards, but they all kind of do nothing under these circumstances. I go for Book of Life because I want to be able to go on the aggressive. Assuming that's Honest, I don't really have a good way of getting rid of it without firing off the Black Salvo early. We go into battle phase. I attack in just to confirm for myself, and it is indeed Honest. I take the damage, I set, and I end. Giant Trunade here is largely a bait. My opponent isn't running a lot of back row themselves, but they are running a lot of back row removal. And so setting Giant Trunade does allow me to get rid of that back row removal without it potentially hitting a live back row. Panda bounces Honest back to the hand, and I am petrified that I am facing down a potential Christia here, or even a Hyperion, but they decide to set it right back onto the field, set a back row, and end. Back row's MST in it. Okay. I draw into the tour guide, which is actually the best target for Crusher possible in my deck. And so the play is naturally to go for Giant Trunade, to flip summon the Crusher, to normal summon the tour guide, deleting the Honest from the field, getting the Crusher effect, getting the Sangan from the deck. Oh, I go for tour guide here? Oh, because I already lost Sangan. We get the tour guide, we get the +1. That's perfectly fine. And I opt to go for Book of Life here. The reason is because I want to start using the field presence that I have to start securing future advantages. A Spirit Reaper allows me to do that by sniping cards out of my opponent's hand. This also allows me to get rid of Jupiter, which makes Hyperion plays a little bit less likely. However, I did just put myself in Christia range, which was not the ideal plan. Spirit Reaper discards a Genex Ally Birdman. That could be worse. I attack in with everything else. And pass the turn. And my opponent gets the most incredible draw of their life. The top-decked Dark Hole. Yeah. My Edison brain totally forgot the Dark Hole was a card that existed. They set a back row, they end their turn, and I get a spectacular top deck of my own in Monster Reborn. This is a great opportunity for me. I can go for a salvo play into Black Rose here to clear the back row, grab my opponent's Christia, and attack in. My opponent loses an MST, which is not the worst thing that they could lose, but they are now facing down a Christia as an agent player, and if they don't have another Dark Hole, which they don't, or a Smashing Ground, which seems unlikely, they have probably just lost the game. They set a Solemn Warning, which they cannot use. I draw Messenger of Peace. Sure. I go into battle, I attack into a Mystic Shine Ball. That is the second Shine Ball that they've drawn this game. Whoo, that's unlucky. And I pass turn. My opponent draws for turn, dualities to see what they can get, reveals Earth, Hyperion, and Solemn Warning, and that is probably just the game. Earth would kill them. Hyperion is unsummonable. They set a Herald of the Orange Light, but I draw into the Crusher, normal summon the Crusher, Hyperion gets in, and Crusher attacks for game. I got a W using the Crusher itself. They reveal the Solemn Warning, but oh boy, does it feel good to normal summon Crusher for game. Not ideal that I had to, play into a person who drew into double Shine Ball, but Game 2, we draw a decidedly less exciting hand, especially because we are not going first. Oppression might have been a bit of a suspect card going second, but it feels pretty good against this deck. I did side into the bottomless, which I do draw here. My opponent starts off with Venus, and this is where things get interesting. This is a little bit of a suspect play. Venus does get them a lot of value. What I'm really concerned about is Birdman into Stardust. My hand really cannot deal with a Stardust Dragon right now. But they decide to perplexingly bounce the Venus back to hand and Trishula me turn 1, which is a massive negative play. If you look at this, my opponent ends up using up a huge number of resources just to banish a card from my hand. A card that I am going to replenish in the next turn. They hit the duality, which is, not great because I can't search for better cards than what I already have, and pass the turn. It's a Blackwing Gale. Now, Blackwing Gale is interesting because it can cut down the Trishula, but unfortunately, Trishula is just a little bit too big for Gale to get over it. So I'm going to set the Goblin Zombie, set all of my back row to deal with my opponent's potential new cards, and pass the turn. Of course, my opponent pots of Duality into a Thunder King Ryo, because When can I ever get lucky? They normal summon the Thunder King, and I am forced to use my Solemn Warning here. I have the Bottomless, but I want to save that for a fairy monster because I don't want to give them a fairy count in the graveyard here that leads up to Trishula, and I don't want to let them get an agent in grave. And a Solemn Warning gets rid of the Raya without allowing them to use anything like My Body as a shield or Forbidden Lance if they have them. Trishula attacks into Goblin Zombie, and we begin a very interesting sequence of play. I search off of Goblin Zombie. I get the Mizuki, which is going to do nothing for now, but potentially gets me into Goblin Zombie for a Black Rose play in the next few turns. And I draw into Call of the Haunted. Call of the Haunted is a fascinating one here. It potentially gets me to my Black Rose play, and so I'm going to use Gale here to potentially get a free use of it and still be able to Call the Haunted it back and synchro with Mizuki. But they go for the Solemn Warning, which is a fascinating play considering, they still have Trishula on the field and it wouldn't be able to lose to Gale. But, the result is that I just have nothing to do this turn. They summon the Agent Venus, which I decide to bottomless here to maintain life points and also to keep them off of an agent in grave for Hyperion. I'll take the 27 though, and I still have yet to get rid of Trishula. Really sucks. I, in the end phase, decide to use Call of the Haunted to get around a potential back row, such as Warning, but my opponent DD Crows my Gale. Not ideal here. I banish Goblin Zombie because I can't even read cards when I'm looking at my own graveyard. And I draw Giant Trunade. Giant Trunade's a really cool one here because it allows me to get Call of the Haunted back even though I lost it first to DD Crow. I set the Mizuki because I have to, and we continue on to the next turn. This Trishula is such a problem. Oh my god. They set and pass. I'll draw for turn. It's a Solemn Judgment, which is great. If I have a play to protect with it, I go for Giant Trunade to reset Call, because I really need to maintain some kind of board presence to not just straight up lose to this Trishula. Man, I cannot find a play. I Mizuki back the Goblin Zombie to maintain the presence on the board without having to use up Call of the Haunted. It would be nice if I didn't have to do this, but this is really great because it gets me a Plague Spreader, and then I can Call the Haunted back, Goblin Zombie next turn. They attack into Trishula, Goblin Zombie goes to the grave, Goblin Zombie activates, and I get my Plague Spreader. This gives me the potential to go into Bryonic in a way that is immune to back row because of Solemn Judgment. In the end phase, once again, I Call the Haunted, targeting Goblin Zombie, and De Fortuna, it resolves. I draw into Mystic Tomato, which is a pretty good one, but ultimately I'm not going to be using it this turn. I'm after that Plague Spreader. I synchro for 6 here, and I have to think for a second. What I really want is to get Bryonic, but Bryonic loses to a lot of back row here, but at least it can guarantee get rid of Trishula. My opponent Solemn Judgments, though, which is perfect because now I just have lethal on board. I Solemn Judgment myself, I discard, or I activate the Goblin Zombie to get myself a Spirit Reaper, which ultimately doesn't matter because I can just discard the Mystic Tomato, bounce Trishula, and attack for game. So this deck performed great in this particular matchup, but I do have to remember my opponent got 2 Shine Ball twice in a row. So it's time for us to go back into the tank. All right, I am back. We are back with the list and with some plans for the next stage. We're going to rebuild this list. And these thoughts have been percolating. I've left this overnight. I've left this through a work day, and I've come up with some spicy takes. Okay, number one, things we noticed while we were in the games, while we were watching those replays. Way too many normal summons. There are just a lot of normal summonable monsters in this deck. Just
far too many normal summonable monsters. Now you'd think that would be what you would expect out of a deck whose primary card requires normal summons to work, but I was just seeing too many monsters that you just need to normal summon and not a lot else to do with the deck. Next, I think it was too much of a mishmash. I think that the variety of engines I was working with was cool, but I think it overall underperformed. Specifically, I think the zombie engine didn't do as well as I wanted it to. Pyramid Turtle and Mizuki weren't accomplishing as much as I wanted to. I think a Foolish Burial probably would have helped me out with that a little bit, but overall it wasn't really doing what I wanted out of a Crusher control deck. Even if it was, probably the best part of my deck. Summoner Monk also didn't do a huge amount. I summoned level 4s that largely didn't do much, so I'm probably going to end up cutting Summoner Monk from my end lineup here. So that's what I noticed. Too many normal summonable monsters, not enough protection for my Crusher, and not enough activity. There are also some cards that I think I would have liked to have seen. I think Limit Reverse might have been an interesting card. While it does make Crusher a little bit vulnerable because it's only got 1,000 attack and can't switch to defense, it still pops a card, and if I'm summoning a tuner after the Limit Reverse, that might be good enough. Chaos Sorcerer is another card I would have liked. Cyber Dragon is actually a card I could see myself putting in the main deck. Cyber Dragon did a huge amount, and with Cyber Dragon in the main deck, Chaos Sorcerer might be able to go into the main deck. Foolish Burial is also a card I would have liked to have seen. As I said, putting the Mizuki into the graveyard, putting a card for me to use Mizuki on, maybe putting in a Dark for Dark Armed, maybe putting in a Crusher for Call of the Haunted or Monster Reborn. These are all things to think about, especially if I bring in another card I was thinking about, which is Blackwing Zephyros the Elite. Zephyros the Elite is a normal summonable dark monster, but it also can bounce a card from my side of the field to my hand in order to special summon itself, so it is a higher activity monster than some of the other dark monsters that I have available, so that's definitely something to consider there. I could Foolish Burial that away, bounce something to my hand, and then I get a special summon to go with all of my normal summons. What am I going to be bouncing back? Who knows? But that's a thing to think about. And finally, I think Caius the Shadow Monarch is a cool thing to include to remove monsters when I would rather be removing backer with Crusher, or to remove problem cards to become a threat. Definitely a consideration here. And with that in mind, I came up with 4 different potential ways to streamline this deck, to focus it down a little bit. The first is going in on the zombie strat. If I want to really make the zombie strat go off, I could bring in zombie worlds with zombie masters and more books of life. That gives me a lot more special summon ability, because with zombie master or with zombie world on the board, I can bring a Crusher back with a book of life, or I could use zombie master to summon Crusher. These are all things that I can do with zombie world, and maybe that gives me a little bit more activity to work with. Certainly a way that I could go. Another way that I could go, thinking about the Cyber Dragons, is I could go for a Chaos deck. I could really focus on Cyber Dragon and Chaos Sorcerer as the big payoffs for the deck. A fourth one I could go for, and this is a classic for the channel, I could go for a Machina Mash deck. I could go for a really heavy Black Salvo deck with like Genex Ally Neutron. Genex Neutron. I could bring this in, which could search off my salvos. It could get me Birdman. Birdman is an extremely strong card. And then there is one more deck that I think I'm going to save for the end, because I think you're going to love this idea. So I started off with a Crusher Chaos deck, and while I really like some things about this deck, there are other things that I don't like as much. It feels like it doesn't accomplish much. Its cards are overall stronger than what was available in my non-chaos focused Crusher deck, but it doesn't feel as Crushery. Once I get Crusher on the field, I feel like I'm not doing as much with it. Obviously, Chaos Sorcerer is nuts. Obviously, Caius and Ryo and Gors and Tragodia are all extremely strong cards, but they just don't feel like they accomplish much in this deck. They feel like they're made for something else, made for another deck. This does incorporate Forbidden Lance, which is one of the cards I really wanted to bring in for this deck, but I think we can do better than this. So here's the skeleton of Crusher Machina. I wanted to look into level 4 or lower dark machines, things I could normal summon, and I found a couple of interesting things. Tuningware is a light machine that we can use with something like a Junk Synchron, which is a normal summonable, which does trigger Crusher. Certainly something to think about, and Darksea Rescue is also a normal summonable, but since Crusher isn't a tuner itself, that doesn't feel like it's going to get me very far. Jinzo Returner is very funny, but it destroys the Jinzo during the end phase, which I don't like as much. The Machina cards are obviously extremely strong, and Dekuichi is another strong card, but it's not a normal summon. So I feel like Machina Mash as a deck is actually potentially really strong in Extreme Victory format, but I don't think it's going to be the deck to run Crusher. So what I'm finding with all of these is that it feels like these are individually strong decks, strong builds. And having looked at those two, I think that the zombie deck is going to run into a similar problem. I love that deck. A zombie world deck sounds awesome in this format, but I don't think it's the deck to run Crusher. I think that there is a deck out there that runs Crusher properly, that runs Crusher to accomplish things by normal summoning dark monsters. And an article I read from Alter Reality Games back in like 2012 may have given me the perfect idea, and you are all going to both love and hate this deck. Behold, Dark Scorpion. Yes, I have found the normal summonable dark monsters that are going to give me the most value in this format, and they are the Dark Scorpions. I kid you not, I think this deck is legit, because each of the Dark Scorpions has a thing that it does that gets you value after you attack in with them or deal damage in any way. I think this synergizes with the things I want to accomplish with Crusher. Remember, I was having trouble with Crusher losing battle and losing to removal, and these are both things that are solved by Forbidden Lance. I can also use Shrink to protect Crusher from battle, which seems really strong, and once you summon a Dark Scorpion with Crusher on the field, it destroys a monster on the board. If your opponent is going for low activity with their monsters, you can start getting in for some real damage with your Dark Scorpions. Mene the Thorn also has 1800 defense, so if you Forbidden Lance pretty much anything in the format, you're going to get your value off of Mene. So I think this, I kid you not, is the deck we're going to go with. Let's go through the card by card that I came up with. So of course we've got the 3 Crusher and the 1 Salvo. I still think Salvo is a great include in the deck. It's searchable off of Sangan, and since we're running the Crushers, it seems worthwhile to have a 1 card Black Rose to go into as a bomb. Next we have triple Mystic Tomato. Of course I'm running Mystic Tomato. Literally every card in this deck except Dark Armed Dragon is searchable off of Mystic Tomato, and it gets us into our Crushers. 3 Mene the Thorn. She searches for all of our Dark Scorpions, which are mostly more copies of Mene the Thorn, and Dark Scorpion Cliff the Trap Remover. Cliff the Trap Remover is a card that Simo has been getting lots of good value out of in the progression series, because when it deals battle damage, it destroys a spell or trap card on the field. That seems so strong. Next, we have 3 Don Zalug. Apparently, I'm running 2 Knife Don Zalug and 1 Gun Don Zalug. You know, you got to have variety on your team. You got to diversify your party. And both Knife Don Zalug and Gun Don Zalug snipe a card out of your opponent's hand. And you can normal summon it, kill a card off of Crusher, and attack indirectly to take out cards from your opponent's hand. It's also searchable off of Rhoda and is really strong with Shrink because it takes a 2800 attack point monster to even crash with Don Zalug with Shrink on the board. Ooh, one thing to consider that I just thought of is Black Garden. Black Garden doesn't respond to flip summons and makes opponents' monsters very dinky. Things to think about against very combo-heavy decks. But I want to be normal summoning, not setting, so we're not going to be running Black Garden. Okay, next we have Spirit Reaper. It's a Dark Scorpion. It's an honorary Dark Scorpion, but it's a little dinkier, and it has the ability to survive being run over by battle. I think this card is just the 4th and 5th copy of Don Zalug. And then Sangan, just like Mystic Tomato, searches our entire deck, and Dark Armed is it's Dark Arm Dragon. Going into the spells, we have Allure of Darkness because our whole deck is dark. 1 Dark Hole, 1 Reinforcement of the Army to get us literally everything. Triple Forbidden Lance to make sure that we are winning battles, but also to make sure that our Crusher doesn't get destroyed by things like Smashing Ground. 1 Giant Trunade for similar reasons. Triple Messenger of Peace to keep our monsters on the board so that we can keep on crushing. 1 Monster Reborn, triple Pot of Duality to get us into our monsters. Double Shrink to win us some battles. I'm thinking about triple Shrink. Depending on the matchup, I may bring in the 3rd one from the side deck. We'll see 1 Call of the Haunted because it brings back Crusher, 1 Mirror Force because it wins you battles and it clears the board in order to get in some Dark Scorpion attacks. Double Phoenix Wing Windblast to capitalize off of Mene the Thorn. This is the card I think we want as far as removal goes. We can Wing Blast away things like Stardust. We can Wing Blast away problematic back row. And it uses the fact that Mene the Thorn searches out other copies of Mene the Thorn to my advantage, and 1 Royal Oppression because Oppression is so good in this deck. This deck does not lose to Oppression because you're just not summoning monsters via special summon. Next, we have the side deck. We have double Cypher Soldier. This is because the hero matchup is really, really bad. The hero matchup is incredibly bad for us, as is the 6 Samurai matchup. Cypher Soldier just runs over 6 Samurai and heroes, which is pretty nice. We've got triple Cyber Dragon. Cyber Dragon extremely strong into machine matchups and just a good aggro choice. 1 MST to deal with exactly Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. I don't think there's really any other card in the format that I'm that concerned about. Maybe Skill Drain, but if I'm seeing like a Skill Drain deck, I might bring in the Phoenix Wing Wind Blast as well. We've got Shrink to bring in another copy of that. Double Smashing Ground in case we are on the draw instead of the play and our opponent gets monsters onto the board. We've got double Bottomless Trap Hole to deal with decks that are just putting out too many monsters. Another Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. Torrential Tribute to clear the board for our Dark Scorpions. Maybe this is a main deck worthy choice. We'll take a look. And double Vanity's Emptiness, a card that would not be played for another 2 years in the TCG, but which I think is really good in this deck exactly for the same reason that Royal Oppression is good. Our extra deck is literally just stuff that goes with the tuners we have and the levels that we have. And that is it. Dark Scorpion Control, I think, is the Crusher deck that's going to get us over the edge. And even if it doesn't, this is going to be the funniest thing I have ever played in my life. Let's play another match. All right. So we are here for a match with Kalika, one of our amazing patrons for this channel. Ooh, we've got a Chaos Sork as the avatar here. We got to drop that GLHF. Got to drop the GLHF. Chaos Sork seems like a paper scissors thing to me, so I'm going to go for scissors. Punished by the rock. I got mixed up, but that's okay. Let's see if they make us go first. You know, because that's what they do. That's what you make your opponent go first, right? Damn. Okay. This deck is not a going first or going second deck, but this is an okay going second hand. We've got the Crusher. We've got the Wing Blast. We've got the Allure. We'll get the draw to see if we can do some cool Crusher control things. Yeah, going first, absolutely the pick here. All right, main phase 1. What are we up against here? We're up against Set Pass. Set Pass is amazing. Set Pass is perfect for my deck. Oh, I love to see Set Pass. Yes, this is perfect. Oh, and we got ourselves a Dark Scorpion, but that's okay. We're going to Allure. We're gonna Allure. We're gonna see if that works out. We get that. Can we get that good Allure? Okay. Ooh. Let's banish the Crusher. Let's banish the Crusher. We've already got a Crusher in hand. The question is, do we go for a second Crusher? Do we summon the Crusher or do we summon the Tomato? I think we set the Crusher. I think we want to get that Crusher guaranteed life next turn. So we're going to set it. We're going to set Wing Blast. We're going to set Lance. And we're going to activate Messenger of Peace. You ain't getting through this. Let me end my turn. This is a powerful open. This is a powerful open. The problem here is if they have like an out for Crusher while it's face down, I'm in a little bit of trouble. if they're running like Nobleman in the main deck, but nobody runs Nobleman in Extreme Victory format. They got to be running like heroes to be able to take it out. We all know how this deck does against heroes. We're going to set pass. We are going to set pass again. This is amazing. Draw for turn. We are going to take our 100. We're going to take our 100. All right. Main phase 1. I think we're going to do it. Because Messenger of Peace is up, and anything that can run under Messenger of Peace can get hit with Forbidden Lance. We're going to flip summon Genex Ally Crusher. Is this okay? Do we see the play coming? Going to hit me with a solemn warning? Solemn judgment? Okay. We're going to normal summon ourselves a tomato. Summon K. All right. All right. Okay. Cool. We're going to declare Crusher. We're going to target this first face down monster. Oh, it's against Infernity. Ooh, okay. They have cards in hand, so this is not going to be a problem. Infernity. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Let's go into battle. Let's see if we can take out this face down monster with our tomato. Let's see what we got. What are we working with here? Oh, it's a Stygian Street Patrol. Could be worse. Could be worse. We'll see if they're going to activate that effect. But if not, we're just going to pass. I mean, even if so, we're just going to pass. All right. All right. This is looking strong. If they summon themselves an Infernity, we're just going to wing blast it back. We ain't fucking with Infernities today. I swear, though, if they hit a Trunade, I'm just boned. That is the reality. If they go for Trunade, I'm boned. But they're looking at their extra deck. Okay. Extra deck monsters are okay, as long as they don't start combos. Combos are a problem. Yo, I'm thinking this deck might be pretty hot to side Vanities against. If they go for the Infernity launcher, just hit them with the Vanities emptiness. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? What are we going for here? Oh, there's the giant Trunade. It's okay. We've got tomato on the board. We've got the tomato. We're not going to lance anything. We're not going to wing blast anything. We're just going to let this Trunade go through. I don't think they have anything worth hitting with the Wing Blast. And as long as Tomato is in play, we have a chance. They're going to have to really pop off here. Infernity Archfiend. Okay, normal summon Archfiend. It's a little bit of a problem, but only a little bit. Because remember, we've got our Dark Scorpion Cliff the Trap Remover on the field. That's okay. We lose Crusher, but we live to fight another day. Ooh, we're just setting 2. Interesting. All right, draw for turn. Holy shit, what a good draw. What are we going to do here? So we could go Mystic Tomato. We could crash into the Infernity Archfiend. That would get us a Crusher. Then we could normal summon Cliff the Trap Remover. Alternatively, we could summon Cliff. We could go for a Forbidden Lance. I think we crashed the Tomato. Tomato plus Cliff gets us potentially our Dark Armed Dragon online. I do like that. I do like Dark Armed Dragon. Yeah, let's go to battle. We're going to attack in with Tomato. Maybe we just use up all our tomatoes here and set up for Dark Armed. Okay, I'll take my 400. Ooh, okay. All right. We're going to declare the Tomato. We are going to use Tomato. We're actually going to summon ourselves another Tomato. Going to attack in with Tomato. Okay. Take another 400. All right. Ain't ready for what's about to happen next. We're going to summon Crusher. All right. Main 2. You ready? I don't think they're ready. But I'm ready. We're going to normal summon Donzalug. We will declare Crusher. And let's see if we can snipe a back row. Let's see if we can hit a Solemn Warning. MST. MST is fine. We're going to special summon Dark Armed, and we are going to prio. Yeah, yep, that is exactly the reaction. We're going to go banish for Dark Armed. We're going to banish ourselves a tomato. Let's hit Archfiend first. Let's hit Archfiend. Okay, and we're going to banish tomato. We're going to hit the other back row. Ooh, oh boy, it is the barrier. Okay, then we just activate Messenger of Peace, set 2 pass. Oh, this deck is so cool. I mean, Dark Armed. Like, Dark Armed, Infernity not getting the combo turn 1. You know, this is how things happen. But this deck is so sick. Oh my god. Infernity Beetle. Interesting. Okay. Okay. All right. Show me what you got. Gonna go battle. We're gonna get back Avenger off of this? Gotta give the think emote. Do we have lethal next turn? No. Yeah. Oh, does Infernity Avenger? It doesn't have any attack. Okay. All right. We're going to go damage step. We're going to lance it. It's attacking Crusher, right? Did we really need to do that? Probably not. Okay. That's fine. Looking at Graveyard. Don't like it. Really don't like it. Okay. This is going pretty well. We have a Cliff in hand. Cliff is not the ideal monster to summon. Let's see. Ooh, and Crusher is not mandatory. Let's see what we can get out of the rest of this turn. Let's start off with the Pot of Duality. I ain't special summoning this turn. Ooh, Mene is pretty strong. Mene gives me material for Wing Blast. Lance is another good card too. If I use Mene... Thanks! I am super hyped about this deck. Okay, alright. Or do I go for Call of the Haunted? Call of the Haunted potentially gets us back Crusher if we have problems. Yeah, let's actually go for Call here. Lance is also really good. If they get to like a Dark Hole or something. I think we take another Lance. Lance has been really strong for us so far. Okay. I'm going to shuffle. And we have an out for the Gore's token, too. We're going to attack. Okay, and we're going to declare Dawn's Luke. I know that it kind of helps Infernities, but it really depends on what they hit. We're going to get this one. Ooh, that's a pretty good hit. And let's attack in with the Dark Armed. This had better be Gores. I mean, if it's Gores, they're probably a bad Infernity player. Oh, yeah. I forgot about my own Messenger. By the way, I should have been taking life points. I need to be taking life points for Messenger. Okay, main phase 2. We're gonna put Crusher in defense. We're gonna set. We're gonna pass. It's not a problem. We got this. Not an issue at all. We're looking at Graveyard, which is not ideal. Do not like to see that. Yo, if we okay, so here's the deal. If they go for Launcher here, Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I want to see them set a card before I do this. Okay, so we're in really good shape now because I can just mill that Necromancer off with Donzalug. Let's see what we draw. Let's see what we draw before we decide whether or not to... Oh, Call of the Haunted is so strong. Did I shuffle after Duality? Things to consider here. Okay. Let's let Messenger of Peace go. Let's let Messenger of Peace go. And let's declare Dark Armed. Let's banish ourselves a cliff. Oh, Solemn Warning is a good hit. Solemn Warning is a pretty solid hit. I think I'm actually going to bring Crusher to attack now. Let's get in some real damage. So we're going to attack. And we are going to use Dawn's second effect. We're going to mill that Infernity Necromancer. Want to keep them off the Necromancer. Ooh, and a Foolish Burial too. That's pretty solid to hit. I'm just going to set and pass here. Yeah! Oh, Dark Scorpions for the win! Okay, so we are going second against Infernity. What do we need to know about going second against Infernity? Smashing Ground is probably going to be our friend. Smashing Ground is probably going to be our friend, and Royal Oppression probably will not. Actually, Wing Blast is probably even better than Smashing Ground here. I really like Wing Blast. Ooh, but if I get a Royal Oppression before they can get to their plays... making the classic Infernity joke there. Shrink is also potentially really good. It's a damage step trick. MST could deal with Infernity barriers, which are good against my Forbidden Lance heavy deck. Okay, maybe a Wing Blast and a Smashing Ground and an MST in. Oh, Kaiku feels really good against this deck. Kaiku feels so strong versus Infernities, but not necessarily going second. Ooh, Mirror Force seems really important for dealing with Infernities. Yeah, MST might be the play. We might take out a Messenger. I like Messenger. Ooh, this is a big think. This is a big ol' think. Yeah, Prescient's probably bad going second. Okay, that gives us 2 out of our 3. What else doesn't feel good against Infernity? Donzalug doesn't feel great against Infernity, but I don't like taking out a monster. We'll swap out Donzalug. Okay, this feels all right. Maybe another Smashing Ground is good going second. Maybe over a Shrink going second. Since we've got the 3 Wing Blast. Okay, I can see this. Okay, I think we're going to work with this. Yeah, obviously they're going to make us go second here. What do we have? Not ideal. Not ideal. But as long as they don't open the combo, we could be good. Foolish Burial. You know, not looking good for our heroes, I'll tell you that. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, boy. Okay. Okay. All right. We're setting for passing. Ooh, Donzalug Mayne. Okay, let's go for Pot of Duality here. Let's see if I can get a Cliff. Okay, in Spanish 3. Pretty good cards. Cliff would be the best thing here. Maybe I could grab one? Smashing Ground also pretty good. Yeah, let's go for Cliff because we have an MST in hand. So we are going to we're going to add Rhoda to hand. And we're going to send Dark Hole and Smashing Ground to the top of the deck. We want to be achieving things on our first turn. And we're going to activate Rhoda. Does Rhoda go through? Okay. Let's go for Cliff. We're going to normal summon Cliff. See if we can get some value out of our Cliff. We're going to battle phase and attack in with the Cliff. Call of the Haunted. Okay, we are absolutely chaining MST to this. We are 100% chaining MST. Feels good. Okay, and we're going to declare Cliff. We're going to hit this back row. See what we snipe here. Oh, a Solemn Warning is a pretty good hit. Main phase 2. Let's just set ourselves a Forbidden Last Pass. What are they going to do? Top deck Archfiend? There are actually like a million top decks that they could get that would just absolutely destroy me right now. Actually, even like a Necromancer probably wouldn't do it for them. Because Necromancer gets Archfiend, which maybe gets like Launcher or Break. Oh, they went deep in the tank for that one. They went real deep. Ooh, do I summon Donzalug here? Do I summon Mayne? Ooh. Is Mayne better or is Donzalug better here? I think we try for the Donzalug, honestly. Donzalug seems like it's going to get things done. Let's normal summon him. We good? Am I going to get torrentialed? Okay, let's go into battle phase. Let's start off by attacking with Cliff. And we're going to declare Cliff. God, I'm getting so much value out of this Cliff. Ooh, an Infernity Barrier feels pretty good. Donzalugan. And then we're going to declare... Okay, we're going to use his first effect. Oh, we hit the barrier. This is so good. Main phase 2. Oh, I could see they were trying to insulate that barrier against... Yeah, they were trying to insulate that barrier against Cliff, but Cliff and Donzalug working as a team. My boys, my Dark Scorpion boys, working as a team. Oh my god, this feels so good. Okay, Donzalug now maybe not so good. Okay, we've got a Crusher. Crusher might be a good thing to like set here, maybe? I'm already getting a lot of value out of my monsters. I could go for Mayne, but I don't have a Phoenix Wing Windblast to capitalize off of Mayne. So let's just... Ooh. Yeah, let's just set Crusher. We'll go into battle. Let's see if we can get in with Cliff. We're going to declare Cliff. And we're going to hit the old set. Let's hit the old set. What are we going to get? Giant Trunade is such a good hit. And let's attack in with Donzalug. And we'll use second effect. Let's see what we hit off the top. Let's see what we mill for them. Dark Grepher, Trap Dushu. Could be worse. Might have actually gotten them closer to their win con. But that's okay. That's fine. What are they going to do? Set 3 Infernity Barrier against me? I don't think so. Setting back row. All right. Oh, and we did it! 2-0 with the Dark Scorpions! Infernity struggles with the luck. They struggle with the luck. How about a game 3? Let's see if we can get a game 3 out of these folks. All right, I'm done siding. I'm just going to go right into it. All right. They're going to go first. Let's see if Infernity really does its thing. Oh, this hand seems pretty okay. This seems like a pretty okay hand. Somehow still mostly monsters. Somehow still mostly monsters, but that's okay. Yo, that's a pretty good open. 1 for 1 is a pretty good start. We can go for Avenger. Can go for Mirage. Okay, we're going to go for it for Avenger. Avenger set to... Oh, and we can use Stygian Street Patrol. Okay, all right. I see where we're going with this. We're going to go for Archfiend. Pretty good. That is a pretty good move. Something that just occurred to me, DD Crow's probably a good side deck card for this deck. Things to consider. DD Crow, definitely a good thought. Okay, we're synchroing. We're going to go for a 5. Maybe a Cataster. Maybe a what the hell is that? Stygian Sergeants. When this card destroys an opponent's my monster in battle, you can have it gain 800 attack until the end phase, and it can make a second attack in a row. Yo, and they haven't even normal summoned. Oh, that's pretty strong. This is just what Infernity does when you give it the option. Yeah, DD Crow, definitely a card I'll have to put into the side deck. Here comes the Archfiend, and now that we have all 3 of these into rotation, you can go for the Infernity launcher, and now is when I am probably hella boned, like giga boned. Let's see what we're going to get. Going to get launcher? Yep, we are going to get launcher. Gonna go for the launcher. Let's set it. Monster Reborn for Avenger. Oh, that's so good. That is... Wow, that is a strong one. Oh my god. To be fair, I'm not 100% that I would have sided out any of these cards that are in my hand currently. Maybe a Forbidden Lance for a Crow. Infernity Doom Dragon. Oh my god. We're going to get double 8s here. Maybe a Stardust. Stardust would be really strong. Stardust plus like maybe an Infernity Barrier in the back row. That's a good start. Do any of my cards beat Stardust with Forbidden Lance? Stardust goes down to 1,700. Yeah, I don't have any cards in my deck that beat Stardust with Forbidden Lance. What could I top deck here? I could top deck... Wing Blast is probably my best top deck. Not gonna lie. Wing Blast would be pretty strong. What are we synchroing for? Trishula. We're synchroing for Trishula. Oh no. Okay, what are we hitting? We're gonna hit... Are we selecting? Okay, second closest to deck. So that's going to be Crusher. Okay, That's okay. Crusher probably wasn't going to do much for us. We really, really need a Wing Blast. If we can get a Wing Blast, we can start playing the game again. Pot of Duality is a card that potentially gives me Wing Blast. Let's see if we can get it. Duality. Okay. We're going to get 3 off Duality. It's not a Wing Blast. What if we try to go for Sergeants here? There's no shot that I actually get to Sergeants. Probably Monster Reborn. Dawn Zalug isn't going to do me much good. Yeah, let's go for Monster Reborn. And we will shuffle. Maybe I should have gone for Rhoda first. I don't know. Let's set Mystic Tomato. Let's set Lance. Let's set Rhoda. See if we can make it through to the end. They don't have any more Infernity activations. They've used all of their Infernity activations. Oh, unless they top deck the Archfiend. Oh, man, that is the Infernity sack in a nutshell. Oh, goddamn. I have been owned. Yeah, I really need DD Crow in this deck. I cannot afford to go against decks like this and not have DD Crow. Although I suppose DD Crow in turn 1 probably only is good against Infernity. Considerations. Another deck this deck struggles with is 6 Samurai. I like the Kinetic Soldier in the side deck for 6 Samurai. One thing I've been thinking about is Lava Golem for the side deck. Maybe Lava Golem over the Kinetic Soldier. Lava Golem would have taken out Infernity Doom Dragon here. I probably still would have lost because of, you know, Rhoda and not having any back row. But I don't know why Rhoda was my choice there. Rhoda is one of the back row I have that doesn't do anything under these circumstances. We're going to go for another Infernity Barrier. That's fine. Again, if I can get to Wing Blast, I'll probably be okay. What can I summon off of Tomato that doesn't immediately just lose to Archfiend? Oh, pretty much anything, actually. Well, they have the barriers. But if I can force a barrier, what? Oh, it's not one face-up monster. Well. I will take 1,400. Okay. Aha! I live by 300 points of damage. It's probably not enough. I can't think of a single top deck that will not lose to this board. Like, not a single card in my deck. Draw for turn. We will normal summon Dawn Zalug. Go to battle phase. Attack. GG. Probably needed the DD Crow. What? They were playing the Red Nova Dragon package? It's amazing. Oh my goodness. And there you have it, folks. The definitive Genex Ally Crusher deck. I should probably bring in those DD Crows. But aside from that, I think this deck is just the funniest thing I've ever seen. Oh, I love this deck so much, and I definitely want to play more of it. Feel free to steal my deck if you're going to be playing some Extreme Victory over at the Discord. It would be very, very funny to see this in the Time Wizards of Tomorrow this month. And remember, if you want to help out this channel, if you want to be a cool person, and if you want to show up in one of these videos, show off your dueling prowess, you can always check out my Patreon. I want to shout out some awesome people like Diamond Dude, like Kalika, my first 11 Patreon members. Those are Sophie, Farfa's Salty Tears, Pat, Pocket Trumpeter, Rune, Cascada, Troubleshoot Max, Dustin, and Misty Tristy. You are all amazing people, and I really appreciate all of y'all for showing up today. Let me know what your favorite Crusher deck you've seen today was. You can join in on the Discord at the Roger Luigi's Mansion. I'll put the link in the description below. If you want to see my updates on the format throughout the month, you can check me out over on Twitter. This has been a blast. I love this deck, and I love all of you. Walk forward in humble confidence, my friends. I hope you have a fantastic day.